You're listening the Virtual CISO podcast, providing the best insight on information security and security IT advice to business leaders everywhere.
You know, there's an interesting, perhaps the OEMs are a little smarter than we are, and perhaps they're looking at the existence of a privacy program as having value from an availability perspective, because an organization that has a privacy program is less likely to have a GDPR judgment or a California Consumer Privacy Act by the Attorney General of the state. So it's less likely they're going to have a problem that would disrupt their ability to service them. The other thing which I can think of as well is that if the if the entity has facilities, as an example in California, they have an increased obligation under that to protect the employees' data. And then I would assume the same holds true, of course, in each of the individual EU member states, right? So if you have a facility in France that's producing a component, yes, you're not sharing private information with the OEM. However, you have an obligation under GDPR to protect the data of your employees. Yep. So maybe that's the thought process. I never thought of that.
Maybe, or it's just the procurement departments not really realizing the differences between the different objectives and what they really need. So hope the split of information handling labels into availability and confidentiality doesn't cause those kind of problems, so we are not multiplying the problem of not being able to distinguish which labels to go for.
Yeah, and then one of our consultants who's very knowledgeable on TISAX, has been through all the training and stuff. He shared a document with me. It's a copy of the VDA ISA 6, and it's all redlined as to what's the difference between 5 and 6. I don't know if that's if something that was specifically produced by TISAX themselves, or if we produced it, or if we got it from some other source. But that's if you're moving from 5.1 to 6, if you can find a copy of that document, or you want to reach out to us, it's really, really good, because you can see, all right, what do I need to update to be able to get my 6 attestation?
If you have something like this available, this is really a helpful tool. That's for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. I'd never seen it. He sent it to me on Friday, because I said, "Hey, I'm talking with Alex over at TISAX on Monday on the podcast. Is there anything you want to ask him?" And he said, "I'll think about it over the weekend." But he said, "Hey, by the way, I don't know if you've seen this," but he goes, "This would be pretty good for you to understand," before he jumped on the phone. And of course, I didn't have a chance to look at it over the weekend, because we migrated our whole IT infrastructure this weekend. So he forgot the fact that we were not allowed to be on PCs between 4:00 on Friday and Monday morning. Okay. So I didn't look at it yet. I mean, I scanned it, but I didn't have a chance to dig into it.
That's a good excuse, because I just wanted to ask, what did you do on Saturday and Sunday? You would still have had 2 days to look into it. Just kidding.
I knew you were going there. I knew you were going there, and I got ahead of you. You see that?
It's always good to be ahead of your TISAX audit service provider. It helps you.
Yeah, look, I can tap dance with the best of them, Alex. I've gotten myself in and out of a lot of trouble over my career. So, and you just saw me tap dance. We didn't migrate. I lied completely about that. All right. So I'll ask you one last question. And if you're not prepared for it, we'll get rid of it. What fictional character or real world person you think would make an amazing or horrible CISO, and why?
If you ask me for the amazing CISO, I think Mr. Spock might be a good candidate for it. So logical thinking and tracking risks to actions sounds something like a good CISO should have. And on the other hand, if you want this horrible CISO, Garfield. Pizza is not the solution to every security problem.
All right, so now you're talking about, so first off, Spock, and he could also do the Vulcan mind meld with the CXO organization, and know exactly what he needed to do from an information security perspective. Garfield, listen, now you stepped on something you shouldn't have stepped on. You shouldn't have gone Garfield. Garfield was lasagna more than pizza, just so you know.
You're right.
When I was...
It was lasagna.
I'll tell you a funny story. So I used to love the comic strip Garfield when I was in high school and going into college. So what happened was I was going to college, and it was my going away party, and my grandmother bought me a Garfield comforter. So here I am, young buck heading off to college, and everyone in the room gasped like, "Oh my God, like hope he doesn't." And I was like, "This is awesome." And I took it to college. And then what started to happen is, like, it became a thing. So anyway, I was a huge Garfield fan, so I felt compelled to defend Garfield and point out that lasagna wasn't really what he was really into.
You're right. I was not paying too much attention, so sorry for this mistake. And Mr. Spock, just adding to Mr. Spock, maybe, but being logical is only one part of a good CISO. So sometimes you don't have all the information that you need to come to the best decision. And then you need trust in your people and your organization. So maybe this is something Mr. Spock might be lacking. So trust in people and processes in the organization is also something very helpful.